It's crazy how something can seem totally calm and then boom, just like that, everything
Yeah.
changes.
Yeah, for sure. One minute you're just going about your day, and the next, well, things get really intense.
And that's what we're diving into today, a recent event, really intense situation that went down in the Kathua region.
Kathua, yeah, a forested area, a lot of terrain to cover.
Exactly. And what we're talking about here is a clash, a real serious one, between security forces and, well, a group of heavily armed individuals.
Right. And, the immediate aftermath is, well, it's pretty telling.
Absolutely. Two of these individuals were taken down, but it came at a cost. Several security personnel were injured in the process.
So this isn't just some news headline. This was a real dangerous situation with, real consequences.
And that's why we're doing this deep dive. We want to get to the bottom of what happened, what led up to it, and what it all means for the security of the region.
Right, because knowing the numbers, like two individuals neutralized, that's only part of the story.
Exactly. We need to understand the whole thing, how it played out, the environment it happened in, and what it tells us about the challenges in the region moving forward.
Absolutely. So where do we begin? Like how did this whole thing start?
Okay, so the initial contact where things first kicked off was near this village called Jakhole in the Gadi Jathana area, part of Rajba.
Okay, got it.
And, you know, picture this, a peaceful area, probably pretty quiet most of the time, and then suddenly
Yeah.
grenades, gunfire, everything erupting.
That sudden shift from like peaceful to total chaos, it's something else.
And you can imagine what it must have been like for anyone living nearby, just this sudden burst of violence.
Right. And we know it wasn't just one or two guys. The group was like around five people.
Yeah, a real threat. And in all that chaos, one of our officers, Special Police Officer Raj Chalotra, he got hit right in the face.
Wow.
And that just shows you the kind of danger these guys are facing every day, the courage it takes to do that job. It's incredible.
Absolutely. And to hear that he's recovering in the hospital now, that's good news.
It really is. Speaks to his resilience.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the big picture, the tactics and stuff, but it's important to remember that it's real people out there on the ground putting their lives at risk.
And it wasn't just him. Three other security personnel, including an SDPO.
SDPO.
Yeah, subdivisional police officer, basically a commanding officer for that local police subdivision.
Oh, okay.
So they got pinned down near a river in some really dense forest. It must have been a terrifying situation.
Totally. Surrounded with limited visibility, relying on their training to survive.
You can imagine it, the thick trees, the sound of the rushing water, and then the constant threat of gunfire. It's intense.
And that just shows you how tough the terrain is in that area, operating in those conditions. It's a whole other challenge.
And the response, it was immediate. Multiple agencies mobilized to deal with the threat.
Like who all was involved?
You had the Jammu and Kashmir Police, the Army, the BSF, and the CRPF all working together.
Wow, that's a serious response. Shows you how seriously they take these kinds of threats.
Exactly. And, this wasn't just some random event. It seems like this group, they were spotted earlier, Sunday evening, over in Haranagar.
Okay, so this wasn't their first appearance.
Nope. They were spotted but managed to get away, evaded the security forces, at least for a while.
So they had some awareness of the area, at least enough to get away that first time.
Yeah, and it shows you how hard it can be to track these guys, especially in terrain like that with the cover of darkness and everything.
Right, it's not like tracking someone on a city street. It's a whole different ballgame.
And then, get this, they pop up again near Jakhole, which is, about 30 kilometers from where they were first spotted.
30 kilometers on foot.
Yeah, carrying weapons, supplies, trying to stay hidden. That's a serious trek.
It makes you wonder, what was their plan? Were they trying to reach a specific target, or did they just get lost or something?
That's what's so interesting. It raises all these questions. Were they trying to move deeper into the region, maybe link up with someone else? Or were they just trying to throw off the security forces? Who knows?
Maybe they encountered obstacles, had to change their route, who knows? But 30 kilometers, that's not a casual stroll in the woods.
Not at all. And when they were encountered near Jakhole by the police, led by that SDPO we talked about,
Right.
they didn't hesitate, opened fire immediately, no attempt to surrender or anything. It seems like violence was their first and only option.
Sadly, that's often the case with these groups. They're armed, they have their own agenda, and peaceful resolution, well, it's usually not on the table.
And that led to the second major clash, this time in Sufain village. And this happened in broad daylight.
Wow, so during the day, everyone could see what was going on.
Yeah, and the sounds, gunfire, grenades, even reports of rocket blasts. Imagine the impact on the civilians in the area. It must have been terrifying.
Absolutely. Daytime makes it so much more visible, disruptive, and the fact that they were using heavier weapons, that's a whole other level of threat.
And, after that initial encounter in Sanyul village, they found a lot of evidence, stuff that really tells us about this group and what they were capable of.
Like what kind of stuff?
So they found 4 loaded magazines for an M4 carbine, that's a powerful assault rifle, and that much ammo. It means they were ready for a serious fight.
The M4, it's a standard issue for a lot of militaries. It's a serious weapon.
And then they found 2 grenades, which, as you mentioned earlier, are super dangerous, capable of causing a lot of damage.
Yeah, grenades, they're versatile, can be used in so many ways, both offensively and defensively, so their presence it's not a good sign.
They also found a bulletproof jacket, which, it offers some protection, but it's not foolproof, and in this case, it wasn't enough to prevent injuries.
Right. Bulletproof vests, they're designed to stop certain types of bullets, but they have their limits. And the fact that they found one, it suggests whoever was wearing it, they were in a dangerous position.
Absolutely. And then they found sleeping bags and food packets, which tells us they were planning on staying in the area for a while. This wasn't just a quick in and out operation.
So they were prepared to stay, maybe set up a temporary base, do some reconnaissance, maybe even plan more attacks. It's worrying.
And then, kind of a strange detail, they also found tracksuits.
Tracksuits.
Yeah, and, makes you think maybe they were planning for a quick escape, a way to blend in, ditch the heavier gear and try to disappear.
Makes sense. Being able to move quickly, blend in, that's important for these groups. They don't want to get caught.
And then probably the most concerning thing they found, materials for IEDs.
IEDs, wow. So improvised explosive devices, that's a whole other level of dangerous.
Yeah, that means they had the capability and the intention to cause some serious damage. And those things, they don't discriminate. Civilians can easily get caught in the blast.
The IEDs are a game changer. It means they weren't just focused on engaging directly with security forces, they were potentially planning to target broader areas. And that's a major concern.
Absolutely. And intelligence suggests they probably entered India on Saturday night, maybe through a ravine or even an underground tunnel.
Tunnels, wow, so they were really determined to get in undetected.
Yeah, using those kinds of routes, it shows they were trying to bypass the regular security checkpoints, the normal border patrols. It takes a lot of planning and effort to pull that off.
It really does. Using those kinds of routes, it's not easy. It shows a level of sophistication, resources. It's not something you just decide to do on a whim.
And it's worth noting, the DGP, Nalin Prabhat, and the IGP, Bim Senturi, they've been in Kathua for 4 days straight overseeing the situation.
That's significant. Those are high-ranking officials. It shows you how seriously they're taking this whole thing.
Exactly. Having those guys on the ground, it means better coordination, better decision-making. It shows you that this is a top priority for them.
And, as intense as this encounter was, it's important to remember this isn't an isolated incident.
Right. It's part of a bigger pattern. These attempts to infiltrate India, they're happening all the time.
It's a constant challenge, a reminder that the threat is real and it's not going away anytime soon.
And the security forces, they're committed to countering these threats. And the fact that they neutralized 2 of these individuals, it shows they're effective, they're doing their job.
Yeah, taking down 2 individuals, that's a big win. But it also means there might be others out there still.
Exactly. The search is still ongoing, which means the situation is still active. Everyone needs to stay vigilant.
So it's a balancing act, celebrating the successes, the neutralization of those 2 individuals, while also recognizing that the threat isn't completely gone.
Exactly. So as we wrap this up, what are the key takeaways here? First, the intensity of the situation. This was a serious confrontation, not just a minor skirmish.
Right, and the bravery of the security personnel involved, like SPO Bharat Shalotra, who was injured but is thankfully recovering.
And then the nature of the threat itself. These weren't just random individuals. They were organized, well-equipped, and dangerous.
And importantly, this wasn't just some isolated event. It's part of a bigger, ongoing security challenge that India is facing.
Absolutely. So here's something to think about. They found a lot of equipment. There were multiple encounters, and this all happened over a pretty wide area. So even with 2 individuals neutralized, what does that tell us about the scale of this operation, the planning involved, the coordination?
Right. It makes you wonder how many more attempts are being made, how many are successful, how many slip under the radar.
It really does. It makes you think about the bigger picture, the threats that are out there, the work that's being done to keep us safe. It's a lot more complex than it might seem at first glance.
It really is. It's like an iceberg. What we see is just the tip. There's a whole lot more happening beneath the surface that we don't even know about.
And that's what makes it so important to stay informed, to understand the challenges, and to appreciate the work that's being done to keep us safe.
Absolutely. And that's what these deep dives are all about, digging deeper, getting past the headlines, and really understanding the complexities of the world around us.
Exactly. So keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and we'll be back soon with another deep dive. Until then, stay safe out there.
And stay informed.